What's going on? Welcome in to 76ers Now by Chat Sports. Jake Chipper here with you. And on today's show, going to take a look at some of the top available free agents left on the market as we enter day 3 of NBA free agency here on Wednesday, July 2nd. Now, before we go through all those names, the top guys available who I think are the smartest targets for the 76ers to pursue, we are so close to a big milestone here on the channel. Just 14 subscribers away from 23K. We've been live the past couple of days and picked up a bunch of new subscribers, a bunch of new real ones. We'll be live again today on the channel. So be sure to hit that sub button, lock us in. Let's get to 23K before we go live later, and then we'll have a celebration later today on the live show as we discuss more about the 76ers free agency, free agent targets, and of course, if they make a move. But speaking of some of those moves, let's just recap as a tracker of sorts everything Philadelphia has done so far in free agency. So, started off by Andre Drummond accepting his player option, opting into that 1-year, $5 million deal. There is some buzz that Philadelphia is trying to trade Andre Drummond. We'll see if that does come to fruition here in the next few days. Then they declined the team option on Justin Edwards to re-sign him to a new 3-year deal. Starting salary at $2 million for next season. We'll see what the full details of that contract are. Kelly Oubre opted into his player option at 1 year, $8.3 million. So he will also be on an expiring contract. And the Sixers finally made their first external, as of right now, their only external signing of free agency so far, bringing in Trendon Watford, the forward, formerly of the Portland Trail Blazers, then the Brooklyn Nets, now joins the Sixers. Of course, Philadelphia lost Guerschon Yabusele to the New York Knicks, so sort of a replacement here at the forward spot, an intriguing player who has some good offensive skills, three-point shots a little bit shaky, defense is a bit of a concern as well, but certainly an intriguing offensive player. And then late last night, did a video up on the channel, Sixers re-signing Eric Gordon. This is going to be a 1-year minimum contract for the veteran guard to return to Philadelphia. His salary is probably going to be right at $3.6 million, but his cap hit only going to be about $2.3 million, so it makes sense for him to decline his player option to then come back to Philadelphia. Don't love the idea of him being back with some of the other younger guards you do have on the roster, but I understand why Daryl Morey went out and got his guy. At the end of the day, it's a vet min deal, not going to make too big of an impact on the Sixers team. And when you look at what the roster looks like as of right now, I do have VJ Edgecombe slotted in there at the 2. He's not going to start this season. I imagine when they re-sign Quentin Grimes at some point, which we'll talk about here in just a moment, he'll obviously be the starter. But this is just a look at everybody on the roster. Don't pay too much attention where the people actually are. Of course, you got Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Joel Embiid, Stud McCain, Eric Gordon re-signing, Ricky Council still under contract, Justin Edwards with that new contract, Trendon Watford, who they just signed. Of course, they drafted Janai Broom, and they have Andre Drummond and Adam Bonus. So currently, Sixers have 13 players under contract. You can carry up to 15 guys, not counting two-way players. So 2 spots left. Yet to imagine one of those is going to end up going to Quentin Grimes. Now, as we enter day 3 of free agency here, Grimes is yet to reach an agreement with Philadelphia on a new contract. A lot of other teams, their money's kind of drying up. So Grimes being a restricted free agent, he was maybe thinking some of these other teams would throw him a big offer, something that he wants. Reportedly, he wanted $25 million. Sixers obviously don't want to go there, and I think since they're not really betting against anybody else, with no other teams reportedly having interest in Grimes, they can kind of wait a little bit and try to get him at a price they like. I imagine somewhere from $15 to $18 million. So we're still on Quentin Grimes' watch, still waiting for him to sign, but once he does sign, Philadelphia will still have one more roster spot open. Now, sometimes Morey likes to keep that spot open heading into the year for flexibility, but they also could be trading Andre Drummond here soon. So I imagine they will end up signing someone here in the next few days, whether that is after Drummond's traded or just to fill out that last spot. Now, taking a look at some of the top free agents available, I don't really see any of these players being in play for Philadelphia. So I just wanted to let you guys know who the top guys are. Of course, Josh Giddey, the restricted free agent for the Chicago Bulls. He's going to be back in Chicago, barring something unforeseen. DeAndre Ayton officially becomes a free agent in just a few hours here today. The Lakers and the Pacers, 2 teams that are really all in on Ayton. By the time you see this video, he might already be signed with one of those 2 teams. another restricted free agent in Jonathan Kuminga. We'll see if Warriors can work out a sign and trade. There's been some buzz of him going to the Kings for a Malik Monk swap. We'll see if that does happen. Chris Paul, veteran guard, still out there. Again, don't really see him as a target for Philadelphia. And then Cam Thomas, the restricted free agent over there for Brooklyn. You can see, a lot of restricted guys do take a little bit longer than unrestricted guys to end up coming to terms with teams, as they do tend to see what other teams are willing to offer them on the market and then return to their teams with those numbers. I know some people are going to bring up Damian Lillard, and he is drawing some interest from teams like the Miami Heat, like the Dallas Mavericks. But look, I don't think that Dame is a target for Philadelphia. You obviously have Tyrese Maxey already in there, and Dame's not going to be playing this season. He has the torn Achilles, of course, so he's going to miss all of this year. Team might be looking to sign him to bring him in for the season after that, but I don't think Philadelphia really makes sense as a landing spot for Dame. And then another player who, look, in a different life, in a different world, would make sense for Philadelphia. That is Al Horford. His skill set theoretically does fit with what this Sixers team needs. But we've already been down that road. I'm not going down the Al Horford road again. I'm sorry. There's other players out there that can fill that role, and he's getting a lot of interest from teams like the Golden State Warriors right now as well. Hasn't been anything reported with him and the Sixers. I think for good reason. Already, again, been down that road. Don't need to try that again. Now, looking at some guys for the Sixers specifically, one name we've talked about a lot is Chris Boucher, the forward center hybrid, can kind of play both spots for the Toronto Raptors. I think it would make a lot of sense with the Sixers obviously having lost Guerschon Yabusele. Yes, they signed Trendon Watford, but they still need someone to take up some minutes in that front court, especially someone who can have some flexibility to play the 4 and the 5. Trendon Watford can, but a little bit undersized. I like Chris Boucher a little bit. He's not the biggest guy either, but he provides a little bit more of a interesting offensive skill set, being able to shoot the 3, coming off a pretty good year, averaging 10 points and 4.5 rebounds for the Toronto Raptors. And ESPN, when going through their best free agents available this morning, actually listed the Sixers as an ideal landing spot for Boucher. This is what they had to say. Boucher quietly bounced back from a down 23-24 season to average double-figure scoring for the second time in his career, while playing an average of just 17.2 minutes, shot 36% on threes, 63% on twos, and producing elite efficiency, while also proving capable of defending on the wing in big second unit lineups. His shooting makes him another logical fit for the Warriors, with whom he started his career as a UDFA before landing in Toronto. Also like Boucher's fit with the Philadelphia 76ers, who could use a shooter with size after losing Guerschon Yabusele to the New York Knicks. And I think it's a perfect landing spot. As ESPN puts it, Sixers really do need a shooter with size, someone that can also help on the glass, help on the interior, but Boucher can also defend on the perimeter a little bit, as they did mention. Boucher also has the familiarity with Nick Nurse. He's actually the only guy left on the Raptors roster, or at least was until he became a free agent, that won that championship with them back in 2019. So you have to imagine that could play a role as well if the Sixers do want to take a look at Chris Boucher. Sticking with the big men, it's going to be a pretty consistent theme here on today's show. I think it's a big need for Philadelphia right now. Mo Wagner is a very interesting one. Had his $11 million team option declined by the Orlando Magic, and there's some reports that he could end up back there at a smaller number. A very, very talented player. Probably the best player we'll talk about here on today's show in this list when it pertains to Philadelphia. Issue is Mo Wagner tore his ACL in December of last season and doesn't have a clear timeline to return. Could miss some time to start the season. So what kind of contract is he looking at, right? I think $11 million would have been a fair number for him, but you got to factor in that injury. So could he be willing to settle on a 1-year minimum contract with a team like the Sixers, who there could be opportunity with Joel Embiid, obviously, having his injury concerns. You have Adam Bona there. Andre Drummond seems to be on the way out. Can Mo Wagner see this as a place where he can play for 1 year on the minimum, get his value back up, and then go sign a bigger deal in the next free agency cycle? I think that could be a smart play for him. But Mo Wagner, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 56% from the field, 36% from 3. He plays with his hair on fire, with an edge a little bit. And I like the way he plays the game. A very intense player and a very talented player. So would be an ideal option for Philadelphia. Assuming the medicals check out and he is healthy enough to return to play sooner rather than later, I think multiple teams could be interested. We'll end up seeing what the market is if he's willing to take a minimum deal. A lot of Sixers fans especially on the live shows the past couple of days, have been all in on Bol Bol. Of course, the freak 7'2" center who has a lot of skill at that position, right? Can shoot the three a little bit, can handle the rock a little bit. He's a guy that a lot of people are intrigued by. And, it makes sense considering the skill set and considering what he's shown in flashes for teams like the Nuggets, then the Magic, and then most recently with the Phoenix Suns. Now, not coming off a very great year, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 50% from the field, 34% from three. Thing with Bol Bol, people want to say he hasn't gotten an opportunity and you're still betting on the upside and betting on what he could be. Look, he's been in the league for a minute already, right? So it's not like he's this 21-year-old project that you're hoping to finally develop. Now, I get it that the skill set is intriguing, but you take a look at his numbers the last 4 seasons. Pretty bad last year in Denver, then pretty bad with Orlando as well, at least from an efficiency standpoint. Put up decent counting stats. 45% from the field, not bad, but only 26.5% from three when you really are leaning on him to make that three-point shot a big part of his game to sort of reach that upside because, a slender player, but tall, and if he can shoot that three, a real mismatch problem. Now, with Phoenix in 2023-24, did shoot 42% from three, just 5 points a game, and then this past season, you saw those numbers earlier. I think Sixers fans just need to pump the brakes a little bit on Bol Bol. And let's get real about Bol Bol for a second, right? There's a reason he's been bouncing around the league. There's a reason Denver didn't want to keep him. There's a reason Orlando didn't want to keep him. There's a reason Phoenix has not brought him back up to this point, and a reason he has not signed in free agency up to this point, right? He has a lot of issues as a player. And although theoretically the idea of Bol Bol is great, I don't think the player Bol Bol is as good as people want to believe. Now, on a minimum contract, if the Sixers move on from Andre Drummond, I really wouldn't mind it. You can kind of take a chance, but he's been in the league for 6 seasons already. I don't really know how much more you're getting out of him than what he's already shown, which is a super inconsistent player who can make flashy plays at times because of his height and his skill set. But, on a minimum deal, if you strike out on someone like a Mo Wagner or a Chris Boucher, I think Bol Bol could be a decent fallback option. Still a few more names to get to, but before we do, get involved down in the comment section. Name me a free agent you want the Sixers to sign. Somebody I've mentioned here today, somebody I didn't. Show me you know ball by getting your thoughts, your opinions down in the comment section. And before we get to some of these other names here on today's show, got to let you guys know about this fantastic deal on this Tyrese Maxey City Edition t-shirt over at Fanatics. It is 50% off for a very limited time only. Was $40 down to just $20. You can see it's that shirt jersey, a jersey, if you will, with a number and Sixers on the front, and then the name and number on the back as well. It's clean, it's simple, it looks good. A great thing to have for the summer months for sure. You can wear it basically anywhere. And of course, the best part of it all is that deal. Chatsports.com/Maxi sale. I'll have that link in the comments and description of this video, so you can click on it. It'll take you to Fanatics, and you can get that 50% off on this Tyrese Maxey jersey today. Sticking with the idea of adding a big man to Philadelphia, and somebody who has some 4-5 flexibility as well in Precious Achiuwa, played last year with the New York Knicks, and pretty up and down, I would say is the best way to put it. Another player who has his moments, but wasn't really able to earn consistent minutes for a New York Knicks team, even with some of the Mitchell Robinson injuries and some of the problems they had on the defensive side of the floor. For Achiuwa, it's the energy he brings, it's the hustle. He's a solid defender, not a great defender, a little bit undersized at 6'8", so maybe you do want him more playing the four, But the offense really is where I've seen the biggest problem from, and where I've seen Knicks fans really complain about Achiuwa the most, is that the offense just really hasn't come along. Anytime the ball is in his hands, you're afraid he's going to turn it over and make the wrong decision, and the three-point shot just is not there. He flashed it a little bit early in his career, but has not been able to develop it to this point. But look, a good energy player and a good rebounder, and the Sixers have been an awful rebounding team for a few years now. At some point, you just need someone who can go out there and do that for you, and again, on a minimum deal, someone like Achiuwa could make sense in that aspect. He also has familiarity with Nick Nurse playing in Toronto. So him and Boucher, both familiar with Nurse, could lead to them being higher on the priority list for Philadelphia than some of these other names. And we're going to end this list off with a forward, not a center here, and that is Amir Coffey. I keep talking about Amir Coffey because I think the Sixers could use one more wing on this roster with Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Justin Edwards. And Amir Coffey is an intriguing player, at least from an offensive perspective, right? Was a pretty valuable role player for the Clippers for much of last season. Went down late with an injury and kind of lost his spot and lost his role in the rotation. But a lot of Clippers fans liked what he brought on the offensive side. Someone who shot 40% from three last year, showed a little bit being able to take people off the dribble, rise up in the mid range, and hit his shot. So, an intriguing offensive skill set. Again, at 6'7, 210, he's got good size as well. But a lot of concerns on the defensive end of the floor, especially when he's getting put in screening actions and on the wing. We know there's a lot of talented wing players in the NBA, just not quite up to par on that end. But again, we're talking about minimum guys here, and someone who averaged almost 10 points, 2 rebounds, shooting very efficiently from the floor. Valuable for the Sixers, I think, to look at. They could even bring in one of the centers and bring in a wing like Amir Coffey. Now, I got to touch on this real briefly. Don't get mad at me because I am totally against the idea of Ben Simmons being back on the Sixers. And again, I'm going to talk about this real quick and move on because I think it's a terrible idea, but I've seen a lot of people bring up the concept of bringing Ben Simmons back. Look, I get why Sixers fans are saying this, right? The idea of a player who can play defense and is big and can, make plays for others, good vision, good handle, whatever. But guys, we're talking about Ben Simmons, all right? He has his injury concerns. There's a reason the Clippers aren't bringing him back. Liability on the offensive end of the floor, and we know what he's been through in Philadelphia. So it's a big time no from me for Ben Simmons. Had to bring it up, though, because a lot of Sixers fans were talking about it and wanted me to at least address it very briefly. So there you go. I'm totally against it. Some other notable names to look at. If the Sixers do want to bring in one more guard, if they don't end up bringing Kyle Lowry back, just some names to monitor. Obviously, we are familiar with DeAnthony Melton, but coming off that back injury with the Sixers, then tore his ACL with the Warriors. Theoretically, still a good three-point shooter and perimeter defender on a minimum. Wouldn't mind it, but are the injuries really catching up to him now? Russell Westbrook, he had some ties to the Knicks. He's still out there in free agency as well. I don't need him on Philadelphia. Just an inefficient player, really, from all areas of the floor. Malcolm Brogdon is intriguing. Someone who's a vet. He's been on winning teams in the past. You go back to like his Milwaukee, his Boston days. Good three-point shooter, solid defender, but he's also been injured a ton. But on a minimum, the problem with him in recent years has been he's been making too much money. But on a minimum, I wouldn't mind that as another veteran guard. I'd rather have him than Kyle Lowry. Gary Payton's an interesting player. He's a guard who kind of plays like a center almost. Some of his best skill sets really on the defensive end of the floor. Can lock up, can block shots, can rebound at a very high level for someone who's on the shorter side of things. Not much on the offensive side of the floor, really just cutting to the basket. He'll dunk on you every now and then. And Spencer Dinwiddie as well is out there. Another guard, a little bit bigger who can do some things offensively. I'd probably rather have him than Kyle Lowry at this point. Honestly, can slash to the basket a little bit. So just some other guard names to watch out for since we went through a lot of bigs in the large portion of today's show. But that'll do it for today's free agency targets and a look at the free agent tracker. Want to end off with this. Fill in the blank for me. I'm curious what you guys think about how the Sixers free agency has been so far. I've asked you to grade it before. Now I'm going to ask you, 76ers free agency so far has been blank. Give me a word. It can be exciting, disappointing, whatever word you want to use to describe how this free agency period has been. Get in the comment section and let me know.